Welcome to the Fiscally Awesome podcast. I'm your host, Matt Gardner, co-founder and CEO of Highline. Today on the podcast, we're going to talk about mental health and employee well-being with Clark Lagemann, a multi-time founder, but most recently founder and CEO of Abaddon Health. So let's do this. All right. Clark, welcome to the podcast, man. How's it going?
Thanks. It is going well. I'm fired up to be here.
It's going well. So you're recovering well. You're feeling better. We've had to do a couple of reschedules. First me, then here we are.
We've earned today. So everyone that's watching, listening, you're going to love what you're going to get because we earned the right to be here today.
Yeah, seriously, we better make sure that it's good.
Bring the A game, baby. Bring it up.
It's been like a month in the making. All right, man. So just set some context for the audience. Give a little bit about your background. You're a multi-time founder. You're doing some cool things. And ultimately, we're going to talk about Abaddon Health, but I'll let you set yourself up.
Yeah, past decade plus running startups. So I've won everything from multiple rounds of funding, VC-backed companies, all the way through into bootstrapping a business and growing it to 7 figures. So I've had the joys, highs and lows of running a business. And now I'm helping other businesses. I contribute to Inc. I contribute to HR.com. So I'm a thought leader in the health and wellness space, and especially around entrepreneurship. In the infinite amount of free time I have, I love endurance sports. I'm a 3-time Ironman. I'm currently training for a 100-mile run in this summer. Health and wellness is incredibly important, and also prioritizing the most valuable things, my time with my family, is something I like to think about. How do we encourage ourselves, as both you and I as being CEOs, how do we encourage our teams to have those types of experiences? So hopefully today we'll cover a lot of those topics.
Yes. So in the company you're running right now is Abaddon Health. And
Yep.
I think that dovetails nicely into your whole stick, which is how to live a healthy life at the end of the day. So talk to us about Abaddon Health and the mission of Abaddon Health and why you think it's so important for small businesses and in the business world in general to take this stuff seriously.
Yeah, I mean, you think of small businesses. So what's really important? People typically talk about managing their financial capital. Incredibly important, yes. But the best leaders recognize that human capital is just as critical. So your people are your business. Neglecting the well-being of those people is arguably running a business without a budget. So what we do at Abaddon Health is we help companies move beyond checking the box on wellness, beyond just offering a perk, but creating real behavior change. And behavior change that we try to create is helping people live healthier, happier lives. So the benefit of healthier, happier lives can be multifaceted, but the real ones are people stay engaged in their workplace. They're healthy and happy when they're working. So there's no absenteeism, presenteeism. They feel good about their employer, and they're feeling good about their own personal lives outside of that. So not being strained all across the board. So we've been doing this for about a decade now. Primarily, we were selling to large enterprise organizations. And more recently, we started introducing this solution for small businesses. So, under 1,000, under 500, under 100 employees. So really those organizations that are trying to level up their offerings for their employees, but they don't have the resources necessarily. That's a great place we step in.
So where'd the inspiration for that come from? Is there like a moment in your past, like you've founded other companies? Was it experiences of doing that? Is it personal to you? Like, where's all of it come from?
Yeah, the origin of the business was people are very difficult to manage themselves. We were started in a physician's practice in northern New Jersey. The whole concept was patients would come to see this doctor all the time. I want to get healthier. I don't feel that great. Prescription, they go back home. And inevitably they come back 3-6 months later and saying, I don't have the outcomes. I don't feel good. I feel less healthy. All the same. It's like the routine that was going again and again. So we built out a health coaching protocol. So really it's an accountability problem that we were trying to solve. And over time, the problem that we were trying to solve grew into how do we do this with more financial security for our client? How do we give equal outcomes for less money? That's like the American dream. We want to have more of whatever you're offering, but we want to spend less money. So we built out a digital solution to support our program. And eventually we started learning that the digital solution was really impactful, highly valuable. And when you layer in our health coaches, which we have trained professionals that sit behind these tools, the outcomes are through the roof. But most organizations say, I just want to have something for everyone that's democratize their wellness offering for their employees.
Yeah. So, okay, you've been at it for 10 years with that. So like all the data points, throw out some good factoids of things that you've been able to quantify in terms of like tangible benefits that you've been able to create for your customers and your clients.
Yeah. The one that probably people look at the most is look in the mirror and say, what's the one thing you want to change about yourself? We don't need to, I won't put you on the spot. Most people say, I want to lose weight. I want to lose inches. Like it's always about weight and weight management. That's
you can put me on the spot. That's okay. We can play that game.
You never know. I don't want to push, but even myself, like we started with, I've done 3 Ironman. I have trained my body as hard as I possibly could go. I had nutritionists, I had personal health coaches, I had fitness professionals helping me train me. And even at the peak of my physical regimen, I was still like, it'd be really great if I just lost a little bit right over here. It's incredible, like the vanity metrics that we use to judge how healthy we are, which that's such a poor measure of my health and wellness. But primarily people say, I want to lose weight. I want to lose inches. So we have a variety of biometrics that we've proven that we've been able to improve these health metrics for these people. And it's not just like I lost 5 pounds. It's no, you get a third party validated assessment that comes on site. We're either taking lab results from you or actually measuring you and saying that this tool really drives outcomes that are quantifiable for the organization and matter to the employee.
Interesting. So do you have like reduction metrics? Like when you're pitching a company and you're trying to have them buy the platform, what are the ones you point to where you're like, we can reduce like a waist size by 10% on average for employees? What are those?
Yeah, BMI, body. It's hard to give like the very direct answer because all organizations are different. So the larger the organization, typically they're self-insured. So they have a financial stake into managing the health and wellness of their employees.
Yep.
And because they have that financial stake, what they do is they incentivize their employees to take action. It makes sense. I know I could save $1,000 if I pay Clark $200 to do an action or an activity. So in those organizations, like you typically see, they're getting an incentive for people to break some sort of habit. Everything from the nicotine addiction, which is incredibly important, and that's really powerful, alcohol suppression, and then you have one that are a little softer and more difficult to measure, which is stress and sleep. These are things that just hit you all across the board about different comorbidities you may or may not have. Inevitably, it's usually associated to you're stressed out, you're not sleeping well, so your body's not fully recovering. So you're looking at double-digit biometric improvements, waist circumference reductions, and this is over the course, we have studies over the course of multiple years. So it's great to do it once, but sustaining those outcomes over the course of multiple years when the employee is still getting that same benefit is very difficult. And we've been able to do that over the course of multiple years.
This is fascinating to me because when I was younger, when I was in my 20s, I was always in like really good shape. I was in really good shape for what it was. I invested a lot of time in it. I was early in my career. You don't really fully understand stress, I don't think, if you're working for somebody else. You get a little bit older and then it gets a little harder to stay in shape and the stress increases. And I'll tell you as a founder, man, like high cortisol is a real thing and the impacts on your body is a real thing. I'm able to reflect on it now when I look back and I say, man, if I felt a little better about my health and if I feel this way, there's got to be some people on my team that do too. There's a business case to be made for this. If you come to work here and we prioritize making you feel better about yourself and healthier, there's some compounding value effect, I think, that happens too. Yeah. So how do you convince people to focus on it? Are they coming to you because they've already self-identified? Or are you like trying to convince folks of the value of prioritizing their employees' health?
Yeah, much more difficult of a sales process, convincing someone that they have a problem. To say, as you're telling the story, you know your team, and arguably someone on your team right now is spending money to improve their own health and wellness. The industries that are fitness, nutrition, and those things that are just out there in the ether, billions of dollars are being spent on that every year. So all of your employees are trying to better themselves some which way or the other. But the things that I always look at is like, things you can see, things you can't see. So we started with what you can see: obesity, weight loss, or overweight. That has such bad health risks for the individual. And then by correlation, it's going to impact the organization. The other things you can't see, which is you just started talking about, which I think is really interesting, impacts of stress. Like the prevalence of stress in an organization right now, nearly 80% of individual employees are saying that they experience work-related stress every month. This is from APA. So they're not coming to and say, I'm stressed out because I don't want to get fired. I don't know am I going to be shunned? Am I going to feel embarrassed by bringing this up? But inevitably they have this. And how do they address that? They need to get more sleep. They typically try to consume more coffee. They smoke more. There's data that shows that people that are stressed out are sleeping nearly 50% more than people who aren't stressed out. That means they're missing more days of work. They're consuming alcohol. There are all these things that just happen because they're not addressing this underlying cause. So go back to what's important for you. Your people are most important for your organization. We started the conversation with people typically manage the financials of their business, incredibly important. You and I both started businesses, which is great and really exciting. So you need to have a dollar. That makes sense. But then once you start scaling, what do you think about all the time? Your people. Like that's the most important asset you have. And how do you help those people live the best lives and be most productive in your organization?
Yeah, 1000%. And you're forcing some real-time reflection with me right now. You're right. Financial capital is managed tighter. There's like a whole process around it. There's budgets, there's forecasts, there's reporting about it. It's just part of the DNA of any company. The underlying driver to financial success. And I think also the proficiency in the outcomes of how you allocate financial capital is going to be tied back to human capital, because whether you're a services company, where I would argue it's actually more important, or if you're a product company where you're building a product and like human interaction with your clients is probably a little less important, but certainly somebody's building the product behind the scenes, there's got to be some tangible, measurable impact. Like your clients have a better experience with you because your people are showing up healthy, motivated, well rested, just like showing up every day to kick ass. So why do you think this has taken so long for folks to focus on it? Is it harder to measure? What do you think's like the underlying like root cause for why this hasn't been a priority for so long?
Well, you nailed it. Certainly one thing is the measurement. So people right now, always the conversation for years, I've been in here for over a decade now, was ROI. So you know what that is? What you spent, what is the return on that investment?
All the finance guys out there know how to calculate that.
It's so difficult to quantify in this type of solution because it doesn't happen overnight. But there is data points right now around ROI that for every $1 you spend, typically $2.75 to $3.50 in return. That's from Becker's. But then people now are talking about it differently. They're talking about value on investment, VOI. And that's like the bigger trend I'm seeing more recently. And that's like you were saying, how do I attract and retain really kick-ass employees? How do I create this culture that's really exciting? I can't put my finger on it exactly, but I know I need to do these things. That's like the value on investment. And they're seeing this really great outcomes. Like Gallup did a study on this, is that organizations that have a strong wellness program, and wellness program, that's pretty general, that's pretty ambiguous, reported that they have 30% less turnover. That's crazy. And that's also from SHRM's reported that they said 25%, you can reduce your employee turnover. So you think of all like how hard it is for you to recruit and retain really kick-ass talent, especially finding the people. It's so difficult to make sure once again to the gated walls, and you're like, I finally got someone. Now imagine they leave. It's like the turnover is so much more difficult for a small organization versus a larger one. And people typically under prioritize, as you just said, all the measurements you have on financial wellness. You're not looking at the human capital side of your business. People typically will spend money on maybe training and leveling up the organization. Hopefully they're doing something on AI right now. But it's like, what are you doing to make sure the person comes back refreshed the next day? I don't know. What a miss. Like it's a gigantic miss. And you got to shift the mindset of those leadership team to realize the human side of the business is equally as important as the financial side.
So the pre-COVID days, in the pre-Zoom days, and then everybody went to Zoom, and now you got folks that are like dangling in the middle between, are we going to go back to the office, or are we going to be a remote company? How has that changed the story for you and like the data sets that you guys track and care about for your clients?
Yeah, definitely a big shift in conversation after the COVID, everything happened. Part of it is organizations were trying to engage their employees not in the office. And it was very difficult, very challenging for them. In the past, it was like you had to go by HR, you had to look at this little board and it told you things you couldn't do. And there was this wellness champion on site. And it was great and it was easy and it was in a little box. And then everyone's not there in the organization. And the leadership teams were saying, we want to make sure our teams are healthy, productive, and engaged. How do we create this culture that we created in this box and bring it to them at their homes? So conversations went through the roof, but most of those conversations at the time were around mental health. So that forced a lot of this. So it's less about the physical health and well-being of the individual. It was the mental health. They're stressed out, they're anxious, they're depressed. And what they saw was like this increase in EAP usage and increase in different services that organizations never saw before. And they're like, whoa, we have this problem. How do we address it? And the tip of the spear is typically around wellness. Like you got to get someone to engage, have helpful, useful conversations. And when they're ready to take an action, they are in a trusted, secure environment where they can say, raise my hand. Hey, I need help. Where's the service or resource I have available to me? So we've seen a lot of that. And now it's more of like people are coming back to work. People are stressed about that. But I feel like all that has settled the noise. And there's been massive investments in the space. We've seen a lot of mergers and M&A activity in the space. So the big players are buying business. They're growing rapidly. And a lot of the small businesses out there that are looking for solutions, you really don't have many out there that are offering this. It's most of the businesses being fought over these large organizations right now versus the small businesses that have the people that represent 80+% of the workforce out there is small businesses, not the large guys.
Yep. Our whole thing on the podcast, man, is to help founders and operators think more fiscally awesome, right? So it's definitely an orientation towards financial capital management. I think most founders who are doing it the first time, like very scary, they're novices at it. But this is super important because this is like one of the underpinnings to be able to do that well. It's just knowing how to make the right investments in human capital. You covered some of this a little bit, but just to maybe bring it back and just be like specific about it. If you're running a small business and you're thinking about how you allocate capital and time and humans and hiring humans and all the things that you do to run a business, what are the biggest risks that you see businesses facing right now if they don't make this a priority?
Yeah. Retention is incredibly important in absenteeism. So those are things that a small team, you are small but mighty, hopefully, and a lot of burden is placed on everyone's shoulders. So you probably know as equally as I do, as one of our team members, if they're out, an engineer is out or someone in HR, it's like, whoa, a lot of things slow down. And then where does it eventually go to? It goes to the executive team. And then the executives are spending their time on solving those problems where they never had to engage before. So that to me is just so incredibly important. It's keeping those people and keeping the culture together. Their piece is how do you maximize the team that you have? So you talk a lot about the financial investments being made. So typically you're probably looking at what are the resources I can give to my organization to get them to perform at 100%, which is which is you want to have great computers, you want to have high performing and high connecting internet connectivity. AI is a resource for you. But if the person is sluggish, half in, half out, I just don't feel so good, my back is sore, they are not going to be productive. So again, it's just shifting that mindset to the most core essential asset of your business, which is the person that's sitting on that computer screen in front of you. It's not the tools that they have. It's not the computer screen, because inevitably they can still do work without that computer screen, but they can't do work if they're not feeling well or healthy. We also talked, you and I were like, how long it took us to schedule this call. And then we both were sick. That's not wellness, but nothing else mattered. Like nothing mattered at the time. I was just like, please let me survive tomorrow. Please let me survive tomorrow. And not this physical reaction to me being really sick, but the kind of stress that people are walking around with, that means I'm giving 85% of my best effort because 15% is just focused on something else. And again, that's harder to manage, harder to measure, but it's certainly there for most individuals.
Yeah. Something that's been, it's like a buzzword is this concept of quiet quitting in this remote world. You hear folks say that. As I'm listening to you talk again, this is like a stream of consciousness. I wonder how much of that is a deflection of taking responsibility for your team not being cared for in the way that you're trying to with Avalon Health. Versus I think they just don't care. You know what I mean? I don't think it's that people don't care. I just think that this is a hard transition for humans to make to the remote world. It's different. You're in front of a computer all day. You're not having lunch at the picnic table with your team the way you used to.
We had an awesome office in New Jersey, another office in San Diego. It was great. The team was always together. We did all the things you would expect. Like we had the ping pong table. I dominated. My team all knows this because I spent so much damn time playing ping pong, but it was awesome. Like the culture we were able to create, how engaged the team was. They all felt the love. A lot of those people are still here with us today, which is great. And now we're fully remote. And they would say, I really miss those moments. And I'm like, so do I. It just, the world changed and we were able to redeploy those resources, that capital, and deploy in a way that we thought was much more fiscally awesome to help our business perform better. And ultimately it was not retaining the office, and we do other ways to engage our employees. So that to me is incredibly important. And it is certainly one of those things that you typically miss out on.
You hit on a point a few minutes ago, which is you got all these things that you need to buy. You have computers you got to buy. You got to maybe hire somebody. You got an office lease. You have, I don't know, maybe you're going to an event. You got to sponsor it. So you're trying to figure out how to deploy your money. I think folks have a hard time if they had to pick out of a lineup, where am I going to deploy the money? They're not picking this first, right?
100%.
And that may be a reality for some companies, depending on where they're at and their scale and size and cash flow and all those things. But forget about, let's take a baby step towards trying to be better. Not adopting Avalon Health, because that's like going all the way committing. What are like some practical baby steps that they're low cost, low effort, low friction for the organization that founders and operators and owners of companies could start to be better at this?
One thought as you're talking about this is just so funny because I think of all the jobs I had before I started my company. It was, I would be in my boss's ear about give me more damn money. I was so talented, give me more money. I'm a performer. And I get my 3%. That's what I got. I was in sales positions. And that was like a normal 3, maybe 5%. If I were to leave and to be rehired back to the organization, they'd be paying me 25% more than what I was making. And it's funny. It's always, are we proactive or reactive? And oftentimes retaining talent, you're typically chasing afterwards. And organizations are trying to shift that paradigm. They're trying to shift their mindset. And this piece I think is even more essential to them retaining the talent, is just making sure your talent is healthy and there. So like things I would do without spending one extra dollar, because you could do things without spending any money, which is the best thing about wellness, is one, the leadership sets the tone. So if organizations want to be perceived as a team that cares about their employees, and I'm care is just a nebulous term, but just the idea is, if you're going to email me at 11 p.m. and you're my boss, your team thinks they should too. So if you're not just closing with, hey, come back to me when you get this in the morning, having open conversations around the type of culture you want to create, just being an open box, if you're not, especially not in the workplace anymore, like meaning in a physical office, that to me is just such a missed opportunity, because your employees, like I face right now, they're not just booking a Teams meeting with me to shoot the shit. They're not doing that. That's crazy. It's so formal. They're going to book a time for me at 10 o'clock on Thursday. That doesn't happen. But when I was in the office, they'd be like, hey, Clark, I want to talk about a few things. And those missed opportunities, those small micro conversations that can allow them to understand what I feel about the workplace and about what's happening, is so hard to replicate, especially in a virtual setting. So I need to be more proactive, publicly advocating for the culture I want to create. And that costs nothing. That's $0. It's just me making a conscious effort to encourage that type of mindset. Like that's one good tip I would say out the box that every leader should do.
It's like company norms, like communication norms. Like you can establish those. And I think that helps people understand how to best engage. You know, that's interesting you just said, because you, in an office setting, how much of your day do you think was consumed by just kind of like shooting the shit? Yeah. You didn't have anything on the calendar. You wandered into somebody's office, you got into a conversation that maybe was relevant for the day, business related, or it was purely social and relationship building. Like how much of that do you think, is it like a quarter of the time, more or less? I mean, what do you think?
I'll tell you right now, my old me would kick my new me's ass in ping pong. So my conversations happened on the ping pong table, and we did it all the time. So I think a quarter of my day would not be surprising I'd spent on there. It was also natural. It wasn't forced. What am I going to do now? Block my calendar for 2 hours in the morning to have casual conversations with my team? That's crazy. When I call them right now on Teams unannounced, they're like, what is happening? What does he need? And then also too, they pick up the call. I land in their bedroom or in their living room. Like it's you just lose all of that. Yeah. It's just so invasive, man. I hate it for them. But I want to try to create that culture though.
I know it's a double-edged sword, because the flexibility of not having set office hours, and you can do your laundry or mow your lawn, or you could cut out for a couple hours if you need to without it being like problem, is great, but they miss something else too by not being together. And I think the other thing that happens too is we filled up our days, that other 25%, with more high stress, just we're focused more. Like we're just all on Zoom, but it's all big issues. It's work. So it's not a bad thing for productivity in some ways, but it is counterproductive in other ways too, because your brain can only handle so much in one day.
Yeah. I think you lose out on just like, if you and I were in the office together, I just bounced an idea by you. It's like, we're doing a lot of collective sharing. The burden is not singularly placed on my shoulders. Like you're taking maybe 3% of it. You don't even know you're taking it, but you're just there for me and we're having a conversation. But for me now to facilitate that in this virtual world, I'm having to book a session with you. And now it feels very formal. Maybe I need to do an agenda because I'm a little nervous. My boss wants to, and now I just spent 2 hours thinking about this meeting that could have had a 2-minute conversation with you, just got recalibrated and went back to my process.
Yeah. What function in the organization do you think owns this?
For small organizations, it's executive teams. So the CEO down, that's typically where I'm seeing it. Larger organizations, it's HR, people ops. But if you're trying to set the tone for your organization, you want to show them in a way that's different and unique and special, that you care about their health and wellness, both themselves and their loved ones, you make a conscious effort to change what you're doing with them. And it could be the new perk. It could be we're doing stock options. It could be we're doing a company trip. We're doing a company swag, or it could be we're doing wellness, and we're going to invest in these individual employees and have them live healthier lives.
Yep. People ops is an interesting topic. I still don't think many people know what that is, truly know what that is. I think it can be highly strategic. And we've had a couple conversations on this podcast with folks who are people ops leaders that have a point of view on this. I would love to see small businesses invest earlier in this. Like, I think having an HR person or someone who's like doing HR and processing payroll is just such an unnecessary investment. You can outsource that stuff, and technology's gotten so good that you don't have to consume a lot of money to get it done well.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see more people ops in companies that are sub 50 people, because they, I think, just bring an interesting perspective to the table, and they can represent these interests in a way that I think it's really hard when you're trying to juggle a bunch of different things to see. Like it's
Yeah.
impossible to do them all at one time. What's your experience been with people operations?
Yeah, it just depends on, as you said, the size of the organization, also the growth trajectory. Are
Yep.
you investing right now as a leader strategically or tactically? And those are if you, based upon that answer is who you would be best had to table with. I need a doer. I need someone that's just going to process. Okay, we have that type of identified role, or I need someone to think the next 3, 5, and 10 years down the line, what types of organizations and what types of structures do we need? It's a different type of individual that's rounding out your leadership team. Certainly, I love strategy. I love the strategic minds on there. But if I'm a small business, I might just say I need someone to just do blocking and tackling for me. That's saying my founder and I, we always typically talk about is, are we looking for someone to do blocking and tackling or
Yep.
run like a halfback option? Like very different types of skill sets within the organization. And ultimately, if you have a great team, you have all those roles and you're firing on all cylinders because all those people can produce a winning play or a winning season for you. But inevitably, you're having to make sacrifices. Like you're
Yep.
deciding right now, do I fly to conference A or keep that extra $1,000 in my pocket and do like maybe social ads or something? It's like to go from there to like the people ops versus HR. You're champagne problems, buddy. Like you're in a great position to be doing that because that's not practical for most people.
Yep. I think there's a case to be made for fractionalizing some of that. Like you can get,
100%.
sometimes it's like just bring in somebody to help you establish some of these programs. There are companies out there that can do that, whether it's full-time, whether it's not, whether you have a Swiss Army knife on your team and you're a small company and they can do a bunch of different things. They have to be leveled up. Just, I feel like this only gets done well if somebody really takes ownership.
I was talking on another podcast recently about a bootstrap business. So this company we built it from $0 in except for founder money in, and we built it out in a nice successful company. We're talking about like, what are the real tangible steps that CEOs like me should be thinking about? And I talked a lot about fractional roles. Like people often go so hard at needing to hire the best role and all this time recruiting and investing. It's like, no, man, you just need someone for 3 months to get you to the next stage. And then hopefully you have a team or coaches of people that can help you continue to perform well and allows you that flexibility, much like why people like renting homes versus buying something. Like you have to know, do I want to have the school systems? Are they great here? Who are my neighbors? Like I rent something. If it's bad for a year, then I could get out next year. And that's what's nice about those fractional roles. There's no real big commitment and hopefully you can tie it to a project. So going back to what's my ROI on that investment? Like we talk about like, what's the wellness ROI? It's like improve. I started this project here and I finished it here. And this is what the person did. And maybe I want them to continue on for a second project.
Agree. That's our whole thing, right? Fractionalization. We're fractionalizing financial operations. We're like Avedon Health's been a client for many years. So Clark's been a good support of what we're doing. But I agree. I think if you want to get the best bang for your buck, you should fractionalize like all the non-mission critical roles in your organization for a while. Like anything revenue generating, anything that's heavy operational focus, those got to be in-house. But I think there's a lot that you can do to surround yourself with fractional talent or fractional companies, or even just short-term solutions to do projects, like you said. And I don't think people look enough that way.
But you learned so much though. It's if you and I did a project together for 3 months and then went to someone else for 3 more months, like what I'm learning over the course of 6 months from 2 incredible people or 2 incredible companies is just so meaningful for the business. Again, it's up to the leaders to take advantage of that. So if we're not able to understand, comprehend, and then to socialize those learnings across the organization, no one to blame but the person, myself. Like it's my responsibility as the organizational head to say, I made this investment. Here's the project I want to be delivered on, but also here's the downstream benefits I think I can get from bringing these people into the organization.
Do you, in terms of ROI, because you said ROI, there's if you don't have Avedon Health and you don't have a platform or something that can help you do this, is just like doing it like an employee net promoter score? Is that just at least do that so you can get a sense for how your folks are feeling and get some sentiment score, get some feedback? Do you think a lot of companies are even doing that? Or do you think that this is like grassroots? We're at the beginning stages of companies even thinking they need to do that. Like the average SMB, forget about the world you came in, you're like venture back, you've been multi-time founder, but do you think most companies are even asking the question? No.
They're just thinking they know. Look, I think I know my team very well. And I think I understand I have a good pulse of my organization. And we do these things right now. And I'm always surprised. I'm like, wow, I didn't see that coming. And I don't like to get feedback in areas for improvement, but I know I need it because if they're sharing it in a way that's confidential, it's autonomous, it's great because it helps my organization perform better. But it took me a lot to go and do that myself. And I feel like I'm pretty dialed in because I'm like, I know I don't need to spend time on this because it's time, energy, effort, potentially capital to do exactly what you're saying, which is to quantify something you think you know the answer to. And you would know better than anyone. You're like, I know my people, I talk to them all the time, like, man, we're kicking ass, but really I have no idea. It's like a ticking time bomb. And most
Yep.
people just are looking towards the future, go back down to where are you making your investment? I want to grow. I want to 10X. How the hell do you think you're going to 10X if your people walk out the door? You
Yep.
are not going to 10X.
Yep.
Focus back on the people, and your people will help you 10X because you're going to feel proud and inspired and be able to kick ass with you.
Yep. So if I went into Avedon's platform,
Mhm.
what type of metrics am I getting on a daily, monthly, annual basis about the team?
Yeah. First and foremost, are people using the product? So
Yep.
login, utilization, that's first and foremost, because that's what people care about. Second thing is, what are they using? So I
Yep.
have all these people using it. Great. Are they using and consuming things around stress? Are they doing a stress challenge? Are they reading things around weight loss? Are they taking a behavior change course on substance use? So those are good leading indicators as to what type of organization you have, because you are not going to get 100% participation. But if you're getting that 30% participation, anywhere in that range, probably even less than that, depending on the size of the organization, you probably have a good sense of like, all right, well, this is what I'm seeing for the 30 out of 100 employees that are participating. I just extrapolate that across the next group of people. So that's also something we look at all the time. And then of course you look at what are the improvements. So we assess the organization. They have these risk factors. Over time, here's the health improvements we were able to see. So weight loss improvements
Yep.
or sleep improvements or stress improvements, because those are things typically when we help our leaders advocate for these types of programs within their budgets, we want to arm them with the right
Yep.
resources. It's like, here's the things that are going to matter to your organization.
So is it confident, like the employees are like what they're, is it
Yeah,
confidential to the employer? The employees probably have their own dashboard where they can track.
correct. Yeah. So HIPAA compliant platform.
Yep.
So any of the health risks we anonymize across the organization. And some organizations don't even see that based upon the type of deployment that they have with us. And the employee's information is safe and secure and only within their view.
Yep. So as an employer, can you get trend information? I don't know if you're like gauging stress based on, I don't know, like a spectrum, a scoring system where you can start to see how the things you're doing are improving the organization over time.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely insights that can be derived. Part of it is
Yeah.
how involved are we as a team? So we have a software solution that people can take out of the box and just run and never talk to a person. That's
Yep.
great. If you want to make it better, you typically have someone on our team to engage in the process of deploying a program successfully, giving advice, making sure they're leveling up against other types of organizations that are similar size to them, and then digesting the information and helping them make sound business decisions for the next year. So if I was
Yep.
working with you, I'd look at the organization and say, here's some trends, but it's not uncommon because I've seen other types of high growth financial companies in this space that have a similar demographic. So don't worry about that. Let's focus over here because this is a ticking time bomb for you. And that's where it's helpful to have people that have been there, done that, just like what you do for your clients. You've been there, you've done that. You're going to advise me to make the right decisions and help me avoid
Mhm.
a landmine somewhere. And maybe those problems might still occur, but you've also been there, done that. And I know we're going to work through the problem together. It's the same role that we typically play with our clients.
Yep. That's super cool. Okay. So let's talk about the intersection of financial and human capital, because we're talking about the two things separately but together. Poor employee health manifests financially how, in your
Yeah.
experience? Where do you see it?
Yeah. So the big thing is increased healthcare costs. So if you're a
Yep.
self-insured organization, your sick employees that have more stress, that aren't sleeping well, they spend significantly more money in healthcare costs on a year-over-year basis, and they're out of work more often. That to me just so hits you right in the face. Like that's undeniable, undisputable. And then on the other side, this is that you have how engaged are your employees. So a sick employee is not engaged. Like the week when I was out recently, I was not engaged with anything. Email was going unchecked. Teams messages
Mhm.
I didn't care about. I was just praying to get through this. Again, that's me being sick, but me being unhealthy, you're only going to get 80% of me or 70% of me. So a disengaged employee, they're 30% more likely to be absent. They're 18% lower productivity and are 15% have a lower profitability score. These are all Gallup data points. It always goes back down to the more engaged
Profitability score. Talk to me about that.
yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, the kind of the output of that individual based upon the cost of that individual's role. So they are moving widget A to B and they cost $10. Their productivity versus a healthy individual, their profitability, I'm sorry, would be different than those that are healthy. They're moving more. You would say it's productivity, but they quantify it differently. They call it profitability versus
Yep.
productivity.
And it's like they've just done the math across different industries,
Yeah.
services, widget makers, everything. That's
Yeah.
fascinating.
It's like when
So
you go to some of these large organizations that have this massive data set, and they have all these
Yep.
actuarials and they're doing some really cool things and they're extrapolating really intriguing insight. And they're coming up with these great kind of insights for you and I to socialize, because if we're running an organization that has 50 employees, you're never going to have the N large enough to make these understandings. It's like, but it does make sense. That probably makes sense, but I can't ever correlate that to an actual number that these organizations do.
That's so fascinating. And I'm going to assume like profitability translates into probably revenue or margin on your product in some way, shape, or form. 15%. That's a lot. What?
It's incredible.
Okay. So now I'm going to do a little some math nerd stuff. So if a disengaged employee is 15%, so it's a 50% lower profitability score, I'm going to put you on the spot. Typically, what percentage of an organization would you say is disengaged? Do you know that?
It's organizations vary so much. A smaller organization is so much less likely to have these big sways, but let's just call it 5% of an organization, 10%. That'd probably be, I would just start with that as like a benchmark number.
Yep. That's a lot though. 15% profitability for 10, say it's 10%, 20%. That's a lot if you're a small business, that's a lot of money. That's your margin.
You need every employee to produce at 100%. And you're not getting that right now. I'm not foolish. I'll look at myself in the mirror here. I know even on my best days, I do not give a 1-for-1, 100% of the time productivity score for my own business. And I'm on here. I go as hard as I possibly can, but I know I get distracted. I have a personal text that comes in. I have my kids need me. I'm going to throw a load of laundry in. And that's the type of thing that I'm okay with. I want my team to realize that we're not expecting perfection, but we're expecting you to try to be excellent. And if we settle being great, that's good for our business. And that's better than most people, because most people are just showing up. They're not engaged. They don't give a crap about the organization that they work for. They're waiting until 5 o'clock comes. They're screwing around on Slack and Teams and Facebook or wherever they are. And you think that you have an organization that cares. They don't, because they don't think you care about them.
Yep. Do you know what tells, if you're looking for a tell that your employees become disengaged, do you know what some common ones are, just in your experience?
Ours are usually around the health and wellness, which is they're out for sick more often. That one is just the most easiest.
Yep.
Yeah. That one is like the easiest one to measure. And then you look at the productivity. The productivity one's the next one. If we both have same roles, but why is Clark producing 23% more than you? It's because I don't really give a crap. Like, I'm not engaged. I'm also not participating in all hands calls. I'm not doing like the fun survey. Like, there's no engagement for me in those other social settings as well. They're typically much more reclusive. That to me is, we need to look at this. And it's not even like you. So like in the best performing organizations that we look at across our entire book of business, it's the leaders that set the tone correct. But they typically have wellness champions. And these wellness champions are incredibly important. These are your sergeant at arms that are running the troops, that employees respect and care about, and that they personally care about health and wellness themselves. So they're able to advocate for this in a way that's very genuine. Not big boss wants you to get healthier because he wants to squeeze the last 5% productivity. Like, it's Becky who's in the office that knows that, damn, I've been trying to lose weight for 10 years now and I just can't figure it out. What should I do? And or I'm trying all the latest diet trends. Like, those people you want to have, they're passionate about it and they're respected and trusted by their peers. And those ones, which you have that in an organization, like these upticks, like people get more engaged, they feel more comfortable, and they inevitably opt in and buy into what the mission is of this business.
Everybody's incentives are ultimately aligned, even if it's not obvious they are, right? So sure, like the CEO is going to want to see your profitability score be maximized. If the profitability score is maximized, then you can get the raise or the resources or the technology to support that you may want as an employee. But when things get off the rails and maybe people become disengaged because the right programs are in place and the profitability score goes down and the company's profitability goes down because it's systemic, then you can't get the raise you want, and it perpetuates and it gets worse and it festers, and then you're just doomed at that point. You almost have to hit all control delete and restart the whole damn thing. Doom cycle, man. Okay. So that's the scary part of it, but where can it work well? When somebody does this well, what are the financial implications where you've seen a company just crush this and it translates into what for them?
So things that are easy to measure and things that are less easy to measure. So I always look at, how easy is it for me to attract new people to come and join our team? All right. That's me. My employees are out there advocating for the business. That's a great place. They're on LinkedIn, et cetera. But also they're on Glassdoor and they're saying that our organization kicks ass. So those organizations that do really well and their employees feel inspired and they're healthy, they are 5 times more likely to advocate for their place of work. That's great. If you bring in your best friend to come work with you, you have skin in the game now. You don't want him or her to screw up. You know that you care about them. You want to make sure that your business benefits. So that to me is just it de-risks a lot of the decisions a small business needs to have. Like that to me is so incredibly important. So that's one. Next thing is we started the conversation with before, like what you don't see. Most employees right now are saying they are stressed out. This is every year. Like I sit on the board for HR.com, the advisory board. We look at data across all sides of our organization. And inevitably every year, mental health and stress and all this is always reported at one of the top things that employees say that their organization doesn't get, that they are struggling. So if you have an engaged workforce with the right types of resources, those employees are saying they are feeling a lot less burned out and more engaged. So what does that translate to? It translates into more productivity. They're able to do the productivity and the profitability scores we just talked about before, producing more for the business.
Yep. And that probably looks like revenue per employee or FTE and profitability per FTE. Like you can just do more with less people because they're in it with you and they're feeling good, showing up to work every day.
It's easy if you're looking at moving widget A to B or lines of code produced. Most organizations don't have that. Certainly they don't even have the competencies or infrastructure to actually analyze that data. So they're not going to be as sophisticated at that. Just like when I'm talking about the Gallup stats, these aren't my data points because my organization, even with the whole book of business that we cover, which we cover millions of lives, which is a lot, it's not tens or hundreds of millions. And the data sets I have are really interesting and intriguing, but it's much easier to make some correlations around what will happen in larger data sets with other organizations. And the small businesses need to capitalize on what the big guys are doing and take full advantage of that.
And I think what that's going to
space.
And I think what that's going to look like is the payroll companies, and data is getting easier to use. So I think someone like, whether it's Gusto or Rippling or JustWorks or Avidon, there's companies who are collecting massive data sets about your employees. They're going to add more features to collect more data. You will be able to action on this stuff at some point. It'll be easier to access information about your team. So it's the right time, I think, to be thinking about this. Like if you could get smarter about how everybody's doing and feeling, what would you do about it? Because I do think that day's coming.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, you need to talk to your people. Like what matters to your people? Are people trying to do a race, first marathon? Are people trying to lose weight? Are they feeling like they're struggling at home? Most people, like health and wellness is different. It's just what's so crazy about this is if I'm going to level up and learn about AI, I'm not afraid to talk to you. Hey, can you have any money for a tuition reimbursement? I want to level up and learn about this new skill. You're like, hell yeah, dude. You're raising your hand and saying you want to level up and learn more and inevitably my business will benefit. I'm all in for that. If I say, I haven't been sleeping that well at home, I'm coming in pretty tired, can you help me out with that? It's so weird. I am not doing that. That crap is associated with so much stigma because I feel like me, the person that has this problem, isn't good enough and isn't performing. It's very different than saying, I want tools to translate into skills for my business. It's like, I want tools to translate for skills for my life. But why do we feel afraid to ask those questions? Like, I know I would. So I'm advocating for something I know that I would have a hard time doing for myself, but I'm trying to change the conversation because if you can get your employees to think like that, or you just say, I know they're going through this. I know they need to level up and I don't even care. Like, I'm going to not force them, but I'm going to strongly encourage in my organization that thinks this way. You will see those benefits occur.
Yep. So in short, if you want a kick-ass company, if you want to produce the best financial results you can, you got to invest in this stuff. Under the hood, it's hard to see, but you got to take care of your people.
Yeah.
So I want to finish it up with a couple rapid fire questions, man, if you're up for it. I'm going to have some fun.
Yeah, go for it.
So you said a lot today. You've got my brain rocking. I could probably do this for another hour with you. But if you had to pick one thing for small businesses to start doing tomorrow to be better at this, what is it?
Talk to your team. Which is a rocket science. Like we would say, it's not rocket science, it's cognitive behavior science. Not that I'm dad joke there, but dude, just ask the questions of your team. What's keeping them up at night? What are the problems they're having at their home? Like you don't need to associate back to work. What is really driving these people? Those answers will tell you that you're going to have a problem. You may not be able to put your finger up, but you will be able to help those people in a way that you were unable to help them in a way before. Like they don't care about your AI tools when they're back home. They care about their back problems when they're back home. That's what they care about, honestly. Like if we're being fully transparent, that's what really drives the teams. It's like how they feel, their health and wellness.
Yep, that's right on, man. Okay. When's the next Ironman? You training right now?
Ironman, I think I retired, but I got, as I was talking about before, I'm doing a 100-mile run called the Vermont 100. And later this summer, raising money for the Vermont Adaptive, which is helping athletes who are blind or have disabilities get out and compete and go out into the woods and do some hiking and do some skiing. And I think it's so important for me, what I've been able to do. And I'm fortunate, healthy and well to do this, which is centered on the same concept of our business. But people that don't have the same abilities like us, like I can't see, how do I go out and hike? how do I go out and ski? You need people that can help them. And this organization does exactly that. It gives people like the idea of awesome outdoor experiences and competition to get people feeling alive and really satisfied.
That's super cool, man. Only 100 miles, huh?
Come join me. Come join me for a little bit. I'll put the podcast on for at least, how many miles can I get through with the podcast? Can I do 10, 20 miles?
Put it on loop, man. Put it on loop. All right. Last question, man. So this is a good way to wrap it up. So one message you want to leave folks with who are listening today that you perked their interest, they want to know more, they feel like they have to address it instead.
Yeah. I'd say you're right that you're listening. The best leaders don't just manage resources, they inspire people. So if you want to inspire people, invest in their team's well-being. You can find me easily at Avedon Health. Come and take a look at our solutions and help your people live healthier, happier lives.
Right on, man. Yeah, go get some of that. Go check out Avedon Health. Clark, it's been really cool conversation, man. Thanks for making the time. And I'm glad we were able to finally get it scheduled. And I'm glad you're feeling better.
Did it, baby.
We did it, man. And thanks for being a supporter of Highline as long as you have been.
Of course.
We appreciate you guys.
Good
All right, man. Have a good weekend ahead. We'll talk to you soon. Cheers. Bye.